My name is Boaz Arbel. I'm the co-founder and chief revenue officer at Worknet and the leader of the Israeli Customer Success Executive Forum.
Hi, I'm the CTO at Singular. We are a marketing analytics platform. As you can imagine, Slack is a huge part of the day-to-day basis.
My name is Karina Cherfas. I'm a customer success director at Fireblocks. Fireblocks is enabling businesses to support cryptocurrencies. Also very excited to be in this webinar to take part in it because, as Noah mentioned, it's a very hot topic in our company as well. The need to always be there for the customer versus to provide a good quality of service sometimes clashes. So I'm happy to learn and also share from our experiences. We're a very fast growing company from about 40 customers 2 years ago. Right now we have more than 1,000 customers. So the growing pace is really, really high and we experience all the possible difficulties. So happy to be here and share.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Will Robbins. I lead the post-sales organization at Monte Carlo. We're a data observability company, which means we're a set of tools which help people monitor the health of their data infrastructure, similar to how companies like New Relic, for example, would help you monitor the health of applications and uptime and things like that. We serve the vast majority of our customers through Slack and excited to share more of tips and tricks and learnings from those experiences.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Will. And I would like to congratulate you and the Monte Carlo team for raising $135 million earlier this week. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Knowing your company and the team, you're worth any dollar. Good luck and go out there and do great things with this money. So overall, Slack has recently become widely used for business collaboration, from POCs through onboarding, ongoing customer success service and support. But like with most things, too much of a good thing can cause problems, right? When it comes to working with customers, you don't want to miss messages and lack the ability to properly manage those communications. So you out there that is watching us right now, are you concerned that customers will abuse the team collaboration tool that you just served them with and circumvent support? Perhaps you fear customer messages will be lost in a black hole, or that your customers will expect an immediate reply. They will, right? That's all legit concerns. So let's hear from these top customer success executives and leaders, how they experience using Slack. Let's understand who is using Slack to what extent.
So we use it for the vast majority of our customers and for the vast majority of their life cycle. It's actually like the main communication, the main kind of conduit of communication. Most of our customers, even before they become a customer, will go through a proof of concept. That sort of model works really, really well for us. And we establish shared Slack channels as one of the things that leads into those POCs. And then that remains the main channel with which we communicate indefinitely throughout the customer journey. So any of our customers that use Slack, we push to have that sort of channel. We find it dramatically easier to use than email, for example. And then there's a small fraction of our customers that just don't use Slack as an organizational decision. They might use Teams, or we have some that use Mattermost or something like that. And for those, we'll default to email typically.
For us, it's sporadic. We have customers scattered all around the globe. So, and the US are very happy on using Slack. You won't see that around APAC as often. So it is used, but I wouldn't say that everybody is using it. It just depends on the region for us. We're definitely using it. As some of our beta customers not use it or are not able to share it externally, but it's definitely more sporadic. We don't have a certain tier that all the customers in that tier are using it. It's more like a per case.
Is there a minimum ARR, number of employees that you will not allow them to use Slack?
Not all of our customers get assigned a CSM, but if a customer was assigned a CSM, then we do give the CSM the ability to decide on their own how they want to manage it. I can cover that more in depth later, but we do have a guideline or like a policy, but CSMs are definitely allowed to make up their own mind as to how they want to manage their customers' communication.
Awesome. Thank you. Karina, what about you?
When it comes to Fireblocks, it's very similar to Monte Carlo at the moment. We provide Slack channels to any customers that are willing to basically create a shared channel with us, or even we sponsor channels with customers, right? So we pay for the customer if they don't use Slack internally. Yeah.
That's interesting. I'd like to hear more about that later. That's awesome.
In the past, we used Telegram, we used WhatsApp, we used basically every instant communication channel the customer preferred. And this is because of the industry itself. So we come from a fintech industry. Unlike other industries, when a customer is unable to perform a certain action or he has a certain issue you need to attend to, in our industry, they might lose a lot of money because of it. So time to response is very crucial. This is why we allowed customers to set up any communication channels with us. But with growth, obviously, we don't want to degrade the service that we are providing. We always aim to provide the best possible service. And supporting thousands of customers is becoming very, very difficult. This is why there's several plans on the table. We're considering to maybe brand it as premium service because from my point of view, and we will discuss this later when we reach the do's and don'ts, there should be a channel owner, right? Somebody who takes a look at this channel as an overview, not only a day-to-day communication, but whether it's an automatic tool or a person that this channel is assigned to, as Noah said in singular, the customer success manager is basically that focal point, I assume. So when it comes to thousands of customers, obviously we cannot hire thousands of employees. So this is why we need to find other plans.
Cool, very interesting. Thank you. I wonder how early in the customer's journey you set up a Slack channel. Do you use Slack even prior to the customer becoming a customer, like for POC? And along the customer life cycle, is there any phase you stop using Slack post close one or boarding, or at a certain point? How would you position that along the life cycle of the customer?
So it depends on the POC itself. If this is a short proof of concept, this means that the customer is interested to just validate whether the technology can serve him well. We do not set up Slack channels, and the communication is either on-site or via email. When time comes and the customer signs the contract, obviously, when he reaches the post-sale, then we set up the Slack channel for him. But if there's a pilot, right? So pilot, unlike POCs, it's usually longer, and customers probably will require certain feature adjustment for them, or even developing new technology with the customer, because we're a company that it's considered to be a market maker. Then we set up a Slack channel because there's a very strong need to be in touch all the time.
Mm-hmm.
For us, because our integrating with Singular as a product is something that takes a while, and also sometimes require multiple POCs on the customer side, not just one person, then definitely we could be seeing ourselves setting up a Slack channel during trial. But then whether or not we keep it later, that's up to the customers, who they are, and also how they utilize the Slack channel, but also the CSM decision. We prefer during the onboarding, because there are multiple people involved, to have quick turnaround times and for them to be able to bring whomever they need into the conversation. So assuming there's an engineer from the R&D team who's currently assigned to handle the Singular integration, they need to be able to ask us quick questions around technical issues that they want, and they can't just open a ticket to support every time. So definitely during the onboarding is a very critical time. After that, it depends on the customer and, like I said, the CSM sentiment, but we don't promise it for everyone for the eternity of time. It's not part of our SLA in any way. It's more like a fair use sort of concept, right? Like if you abuse it, we're going to cut you off, because it's not mandatory for us to supply with it.
For us at Monte Carlo, we'll set it up pre-sale as part of a proof of concept. And the way I think about this is just like anytime we're in a moment where like we need to communicate or collaborate a lot with a customer, Slack just makes it a lot easier. It dramatically lowers the barrier or the level of friction to get those communications out. It allows the communication to be a lot more casual and transactional and friendly. And also, we really like that you can both communicate easily with a channel, and then the information in that channel is preserved, but also you can break out and have direct messages with a lot of different people, which can be helpful for contracting or kind of getting private feedback after a session or something like that. And so for that purpose, like we find Slack really good, both during a POC where there's oftentimes a lot of collaboration which needs to happen, and then it just persists throughout the extent of the customer journey. So for us, we actually perceive it as something that makes the customer journey a lot easier and also creates more transparency between the different teammates on our side, as opposed to kind of like a premium level of service, for example.
Very interesting. We believe in team-led growth, TLG. All of you mentioned the collaboration from both sides. I'd like to hear a little more about what it makes using Slack, leveraging the power of the team, leveraging the fact that there's full visibility for good and bad, by the way, because if there's a little bug that in the past we could hide it, now everyone knows about that, right? Yet it's super powerful. So from your experience, how does that comes to life, the fact that multiple people from both sides collaborate together in enhanced knowledge and engagement?
I'd say super tactically, just having one place where that history of the dialogue exists is helpful. And somebody can jump into that channel and see what are the conversations that have been happening over the last, however long the customer life has been, and who are the people that have been most participative in those conversations. Just having that sort of visibility is really helpful. Another tool which we use, which also helps with that sort of visibility, is all of our customer-facing teams use Gong.io. There's also other vendors in that space like Chorus, for example. But that also creates a really transparent kind of system of record of what has been said in all these different customer calls. And that sort of information oftentimes doesn't make it explicitly onto Slack. But then sometimes we will link the Gong recording into the Slack channel after a meeting so everybody can see it there. So yeah, most tactically, it's just a really effective system of record of like, what are the main things that have been said to this customer over time?
Including if someone leaves, right? All the knowledge stays there, which is priceless.
Yeah. I think the fact that you have history is very useful. Also, just like if you now need to introduce someone into the channel, right? They can just like scroll up and see what's going on. Or if, let's say there's an escalation, then me as an executive, I can just like step into the channel and just like, okay, skim through it, get a high level idea of what's going on and kind of get my bearings. And it would be much harder than reading a bunch of different emails, right? Searching for the information everywhere. I think it's very relevant here about the biggest advantage in using Slack, right? Versus shared projects in Monday and ClickUp. And I think that the history and the ease of use is exactly something like that. But also I would say it's very day-to-day. It's very informed, right? And so when you have a project, people are not going to start a discussion on the Monday or whatever. If you have some cards or something, people are not going to, but I have a question here, it's going to be more formal. You're going to maybe be thinking more about what you want recorded there. So Slack kind of gives you this more informal, more day-to-day level of communication that you also want to be able to manage with your customers, and so that like you have the project management, but that's like one aspect of it, but then more the day-to-day and the quick questions that you have that could be covered there.
As Noah and Will said, it allows you to create better relationships because of its informality. We use a lot of memes and also emojis in our Slack communication. So this basically breaks the ice a lot of the times and allows people to bond. So this is the greatest advantage of using instant communication technology. A different point of view from my experience in regards to using Slack for everything. It's a good source of information, even for newcomers, but there shouldn't be a lot of people on these channels. So when we open Slack channels, basically the main purpose of instant communication is to support them throughout the entire onboarding process, right? Because the customer is right now utilizing our product and we would like to create the best possible adoption and with as much as less friction as possible, because there's a lot of migration of technologies in the back end. And B, for support, right? So if there's a support issue that requires an attention and immediate attention, and the customer would like to have this solved for him right away. When there are a lot of people, there can be a lot of types of communication going on in the same time. So maybe a person from product can discuss with one of the engineers about something that is missing or something that should work in a different flow. A person from support can discuss with another stakeholder from the customer side about an issue, and the customer success manager basically have discussions with the champion when it comes to onboarding, to completing the onboarding route. And it creates confusion. It creates difficulty to track when you look at the channel as a support person to make sure that the customer is doing well. It takes him a lot of time to read all these messages and understand that there's no ongoing issue and there's no help needed from his or her side. So this is why we ask kindly if there's a discussion about the product itself or anything that is not related to the onboarding itself or support issue, it should be taken offline, right? It should have a meeting, a phone call, whatever, but the Slack channels should be kept for instant.
Thank you. I'll use that as a segue to ask, what are your main concerns using Slack? That customers will abuse the channel? Is it that you cannot commit to immediate answering, can easily miss messages, or how to manage priorities?
It's all of the above from our side.
Okay, let's see the results. So the most majority said can easily miss messages. And who didn't miss a message using Slack here and there? I can say that I live almost in FOMO, and I'm constantly going through the channels to see that there's nothing hidden in a thread that I was not mentioned. 67% of you said cannot commit to immediate answering and hard to manage priorities. Yes, how would you if it just appears in a random order? Less than half said customers will abuse the channel, meaning you trust your customers. They know what they're doing. They are not there to abuse it, right? Most of our customers are also vendors. They are respecting us overall. All right, let's move on. Panelists, what were your concerns using Slack with customers and how did you handle it?
From the Monte Carlo perspective, the main issue that we started to see was particularly when it came to delivering technical support over Slack. So we found Slack is like great for the fast communication, for dialogue, for getting quick answers to things. But then the nature of support is oftentimes it is more kind of case or ticket based. And there are issues that get raised that people then need to manage for a period of several days or sometimes more than a week. And that was really hard to do with just kind of the out of the box functionality in Slack, because essentially we wound up with our support people getting tagged in on things and having 85 different unread threads. And then they would go and read one of those threads and then get distracted. And then it was no longer unread and it was buried under, 6 days worth of messages. And it was never to be seen again until a customer came back upset. So that's actually one of the main things we've been using Worknet for, is helping to convert those Slack conversations into tickets and serve as kind of that intermediary so customers can continue to ask us technical questions and we can deliver support through Slack channels. But our support people themselves can live and work in the place where they're most comfortable, which is, in our case, we use Zendesk, and Worknet is kind of the connector between those two systems.
Thanks.
It definitely relates. But for us, we don't have support people on Slack channels unless it's for short periods of time. So let's say that there is an escalation or a customer that's going through a specific phase and we assign a person to handle it. They might join again just to expedite things, but we don't put them on the channel just because we know that this is not how they work. They have support tickets and it's the same. For us, it takes days, sometimes weeks, sometimes longer. Then Slack is not used for that. In general, I would say, just like what some of the concern is around, you can't give long-term aspect, like managing your communication with the customer, or like managing the status. And I think that it's quite easy if you're talking to your customer every day around just like very tactical issues, like, hey, I noticed this, or hey, have you heard about this feature, whatever. It's very easy to forget that you also need to have strategic conversations. And you also don't necessarily know if maybe they're going through an org change and tomorrow the person that you're talking to is not going to be relevant anymore, right? So you kind of really have to have also the strategic level discussions and not just keeping on a day-to-day. And then I think Slack being so sometimes so noisy and so out there, like if I know the customer very well, I talk to them all the time, right? But it doesn't replace strategic level conversations. And it's something that CSMs always have to keep in mind, right? Like not to just like get sucked into the day-to-day, but to be able to raise the head above water, look at what's going on and strategize on the plan for the customer.
So I think I can write a book about these 4 questions. So we did a lot of experimenting, tried a lot of tools, tried a lot of tactics. I would say that obviously it's very important from your side to always improve, to have the right people, to have the right automatic tools integrated with Slack that will help you to prioritize and mark the important conversations and mark the customers that are really in need of your assistance right away. But also I would like to offer a point of view in which it's very important also to have some customer education in place. So setting expectations with customers steps in this topic pretty well. I think abuse is a little bit of a harsh word because we're customer success managers, right? And when you're starting to use a new service, you introduce your company, your champion basically brings to the company a new provider with basically that bites from the budget of the firm, introduces a new tool, makes everybody to learn this new tool. He has a lot of responsibility in here, and then he has somebody from the other side who's instantly helping him with everything, like a magic wand, right? Because even if the customer he doesn't know a specific feature, specific need, compliance, regulations, whatever, they just throw it out there during the onboarding process. And a customer success manager, like a magic wand, solves all the issues. So it's very, very easy to get used to this level of service, right? And this is where setting those boundaries and setting the expectations comes into, because we cannot continue and provide this wonderful service to all of the customers all the time. So this is where comes the part where customers shouldn't depend on Slack communication. When a customer has a question, preferably he went to a help center or a place where he has tutorials and videos and articles, and he tried to find the answer on his own, right? I'm talking about after the onboarding, right? The product is already in place, the customer adoption rate is great, and he just needs regular service, maybe a new feature that was released. So preferably he went to a specific place and found the right answer, and not went to a Slack channel. He needs an operational task, right? He needs something to activate, or he needs a question about the product where something will be released. Again, customers shouldn't be dependent solely on Slack communication. He should have other sources of information.
I think that it's really important, like Karina said, we need to set the expectations. I mean, this is like the most obvious, right? Like the thing that we say all the time, set expectations, maybe discuss them already at the kickoff call, right? Like this is what the channel is used for, this is what you do. But after you do that, you keep having to reiterate them, and you can't let the customers get lazy, or again, sorry if lazy is a bad word. It's too strong. But I think it's because, as a CSM, you want to maybe solve it quickly, right? Let me open a ticket for you. No, when you have an issue, you contact support. This is not what the Slack channel is used for. So you go open a ticket. Here's the link for you to submit a ticket, right?
Sure. Or even better, let them open it straight from Slack if you have the right account.
Oh, if only there was a magical tool that allowed for that.
Just saying.
Yeah, I have maybe a little bit of a contrarian point of view where if we can spend 3 minutes of company time to save a customer 45 minutes, I will usually spend the 3 minutes of company time.
And I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I think for us, it's more on the fact that we do, I mean, specifically our customers, we want them to go through like a more like guided process when they open a ticket. So they provide us with all the details, and that because otherwise it makes it harder for support later on to support them. But I agree that if it's just like around hitting a button, but we do want to educate them, what is this channel for and who you need to talk to, who can solve your question the fastest. Because CSMs are not there for you, right? Like it's
one of the educational tools or educational methods that we try to implement is when we respond to customers, we provide rods, right? We don't just give them fish. So we send them links to Help Center, explain them how to open tickets, with them supporting them while they're doing that. If it's an urgent issue, we will assist with monitoring it. But we do teach the customer what are the alternative sources of information he can utilize while waiting for a response.
Thank you. I would like to hear now just one sentence, one thing from each one of you, what to avoid, what not to do. We heard a lot about what to do, how to align expectation, how to manage. Is there one thing that you strongly recommend the people out there that are considering using Slack or are using Slack don't do?
I had whether or not to go down a kind of Slack first communication path for us was a discussion that we had maybe like a year, 15 months ago, give or take. And there were a lot of people who, based on their experiences at past companies, had all kinds of reasons why we should not do this. And my point of view is I largely did not listen to them. And my point of view is like, let's just see how it works here. And if it works for our product and our customers love this, let's see if we can find a way to work with it in those confines and make this work, because our customers just love being able to communicate with us on Slack. And at least so far, for the stage that we're at, the number of customers we have, the type of business that we have, it's actually worked out really, really well for us, having a Slack first approach to communications. So my tip or trick is like, people have scars on their back from past lives, and that doesn't necessarily apply to what is going to work for your particular business.
Awesome. Thanks.
I'll give a strong don't from my side, because we're providing support through Slack as well. Don't neglect tools that integrate with Slack and provide you metrics on Slack conversations. So a lot of the issues and questions that are solved on Slack, you need the ability to basically monitor and track those questions and have data visibility on them in order to make some data-driven decisions. So it's very important in the early stages to learn about tools that can help you and measure and drive measures from these communications.
Awesome. Thank you. Noah?
Yeah, so I think first of all, around the tools, I would say that this is something that for sure, full transparency, we as a company should be investing more. I don't think that we tap into the knowledge that is being generated all the time from our Slack channels as we should. So it's like something maybe to avoid for us as a company. But when talking to customers, you have to always remember the purpose of the channel, and you can't allow it to lose focus or get overcomplicated, huge discussions, right? A topic that you're discussing weeks and weeks, or if you have to, use a thread, but you want the channel to be useful for multiple types of people, and it can't be spammy, it can't be too noisy. It's very easy to start this conversation, let's continue it or whatever, but try to move to private channels when needed, and maybe then post a summary on that Slack channel of what you discussed and decide. I think that's something to definitely avoid, because I can see that people lose track of what's going on in Slack because of the nature of Slack, the types of communication there.
Absolutely. We won't do that. Thank you. Okay, so we are almost on the top of the hour. We do have a question from Jacob Klein. What role the customer is on the Slack channel? Is it the champion? May I suggest, as the one who's leading the charge on TLG, team-led growth? So I'll say the more the merrier. Yes, the champion should be there for sure, but let users be there. Let your boss be there too and listen to what's going on and get a sentiment. Let the champion lead that, but make sure to invite more people to handle everything.
Definitely. We have like CEOs, VP, whatever. If they're willing to go on the channel and we can get visibility into and talking to them, we want them on the channel.
How hard we work to get executives into a QBR.
Exactly.
Now we have them here. Talk to them. Compliment them on a round they did. Compliment them on a big success. You know what it makes to me? The fact that I know that so many eyes are watching, it makes me be even better and faster and friendly. So that works for me. Last words from Karina and Will.
Yeah, you're never alone. If anybody has any questions when it comes to utilizing tools, feel free to contact every one of us. I owe a lot to mentors in this community, and basically it takes a village to raise a child. So it takes a village to raise a unicorn as well. So let's share this knowledge and continue those conversations.
Amen. Thank you, Karina. Very nice.
I'm going to steal that. It takes a village to raise a unicorn. I just plus one everything that Karina says. I think very, very well said.
And God bless you all. Thank you very much, panelists. Bye-bye, everyone.